writer, Brandy Ackerley, pulling you into worlds of saturated color. First, I would like to apologize for last Friday. I had a bit of a family thing come up, and I wasn't able to get the video out on time. Oh, I'm so sorry. Don't worry though. I expect this week's videos to release on time, as always. Okay, first for new stuff. I am taking part in a cover reveal with Laura Van Andronk-Bow. Oh, the fourth book in her Shard of Elan series is going to be released later this year. In December, actually. But we're here because her cover is finally being announced. Woo! Oh, now I have previously talked about this series just a few weeks ago, actually, on my book suggestion episode, because this series is one of my must-read fantasy series. Like, it's one of the ones I always suggest. It's a series about two worlds that have been at war. The two worlds are the Flying Reuvens and the humans. However, when the humans manage to create a shield closing the portal between them and the Reuvens' homeworld, relationships are formed and secrets are revealed. And then everything goes to hell in a handbasket rather quickly for our main characters. Oh, these books deal very much with themes of like slavery and freedom and war is hell is war dichotomy. Oh, literally, this series is so good. Here are the first 3 books. Are you ready? Are you ready for the reveal? Yes. 1, 2, 3. Boom. Oh, here it is. Oh, Kin and Kind. I don't want to spoil you for the previous books. So I'm not going to read the back cover copy for this. Instead, I will just say that the general story is, after generations of war, the fragile new peace hangs by a thread as the Reuven attacks continue despite the treaty. Exhausted, demoralized, overwhelmed by fierce new magics, and facing dangers from humans as well as Reuven, Shianen, Tamriel, Ariana, and Luca need one final chance to salvage the truce. Oh, I have to say, I'm so excited to finally see this cover. Oh, look at it. It looks so good with the rest of the series. Look. Oh, I'm so excited. I cannot wait to read this book. Oh, I promise you, I will be pre-ordering this and setting aside a full day to read it as soon as it's released. Oh, okay. Now back to my novel. Let's head to the other room. And there we go. Perfect. Now, in last week's chapter, Kazunaha talked to Deckard and convinced him to let her stay with him for a few days. At least until she gets back from her trip with Richard? Deckard was frustrated with Kazunaha, but his emotions paled compared to Yenny's annoyance at having her boyfriend's ex stay with them in his house. And now, on with the show. Okay, I just need to pull up the book, and there we go. Richard counted the minutes to 5 after Kazunaha left, before he got up, armed himself, and locked the door behind him. He didn't know if Kazunaha's idea would work. If it didn't, a prison stay would keep him in town, and from moving further afield, especially if those idiots he'd killed gotten off a message first. He grumbled under his breath as he walked down the stairs into the Koi proper. It was busy tonight, or at least as busy as a bar in a tiny town like this ever got. There were nearly 30 people in the place. From their clothes and the scent of salt and fish, Richard assumed that most of these men were fishermen, rather than actual sailors. They were all talking at once, It was a cacophony of sound in such an enclosed space. He hurried to the front door and felt a small stitch in his side. He slowed down. He was getting better, but in this case, not overdoing it was the right move. The man who'd brought up his meal saw him and held the door open for him. His grin was almost conciliatory. "I saw Kazunaha leave. Couldn't keep her for the evening?" Richard grinned back at him. "She would have stayed if I asked. But her sister is demanding her home early." The man shrugged. Himiko's always been the more responsible one. She got on her sister's case a year ago over a guy she was with. He wanted her family's businesses more than he wanted her. Kazunaha hadn't seen him yet, but Himiko was there to keep her on the straight edge. The man was talkative. Richard may as well make use of it. "I have a question for you. Do you know how old she is?" "Old enough to know what she's about." He grinned, and then the smile dropped off his face. "Oh, wait, you mean seriously?" She and her sister are pretty close in age, so she should be hitting her majority soon. Himiko had hers just a few weeks ago." "Not that it does much for her. Just gives her the ability to drink and make her own decisions." "Have you heard of someone blocking someone's majority?" The guy laughed. "Is that even possible? Even with their arguments, I can't see Himiko going that far. She's a nice sister." Too nice for her sister, honestly. That woman puts up with crap that no one else would. So at least Kazunaha's argument of not believing the threat would be believable. Richard nodded. Thanks. She mentioned it was tomorrow, but I didn't know what rights it entailed. We get ours at 19 where I grew up. Though, as a general rule, anything you wanted could be found for a few more clips of coin once you were 16. Doesn't do much. Lets you drink hard liquor, own property. But it's always been a big deal here in Idan. That gave Richard something to think about. If it was true that the elder had gotten herself all the businesses and the family property, it would leave nothing for Kazunaha. When she'd said that her father hadn't left anything for her, he'd taken it with a grain of salt. Now he wondered if all her old man had left her was a stipend, so long as she was behaving. He would have to find out about that. He could ask Kazunaha later. The man's other words rang through Richard's mind. Too nice for her sister, honestly. Had any of the men here, other than Deckard, ever tried to learn more about the woman that they hoped to bed? One of the reasons Richard never worried for company was his ability to get them talking. Nothing got women more riled about a man than thinking he saw more in them, dug deeper in their secret sides than anyone else had. His meeting was taking place in a pathetic, run-down shanty in the bad part of town. The wood was rotting and the floorboards bent and creaked under his weight. He could understand the creaking being a good defense, but if the floorboards were as bad as they looked, they wouldn't hold 2 or 3 men standing on them at once. If a fight broke out, he'd have to get off it as soon as he could. Still, he had a reputation here in town after defeating the assassins. He shrugged. More like a reputation for being ready and able to kill, but he preferred the first description. Anyway, as long as they weren't waiting for him to make a wrong move, it meant they'd likely be more careful before making any rash decisions. Though that reputation also meant that if they decided he needed to be taken care of, they'd bring more than enough men to do so. A loose board on the wall by the front door moved slightly to the side. The guy inside didn't make any stupid mistakes, like putting his face right in front of the peephole. He felt a little bit better about the meeting now. Dealing with professionals meant that he wouldn't have to assume that a double-cross was already in the works. He'd prepared for one regardless, and didn't see the need to change his plan on an if, though. "It looks awful cold outside tonight," the guy inside said. Which meant that they had gotten the message that he was coming. Good. The cold isn't too bad. It's the heat I can't handle." The guy closed the window, and Richard heard him unlock the door. When it opened, he saw the inside was lit by a few candles, all well covered to hide their light. The door closed behind him, locking him in. Richard put his hands into position so that he could grab throwing daggers, if he needed to. A big man with thick muscled arms, as wide as his neck, sat on a divan couch. His beard and mustache were neatly trimmed, but his hair was an oily black mess. To his right sat a blonde woman, so plain-looking that Richard knew she was probably a bodyguard, rather than a consort. Her hair was long, and set in a complicated hairstyle held by 2 stiletto blades. 4 other men were sitting against the wall on hastily set chairs. None of them looked armed, but Richard didn't make the mistake of thinking that they had no weapons. Instead, he brought his hands up and ran one through his hair. The plain-looking woman smiled approvingly, and everyone relaxed incrementally. The man who opened the door went around the room, unhooding the candles, and the room brightened considerably. There was a low table in front of the divan, a card game partially in progress. He smiled, nodding to the man on the divan. He'd played with this sort before, though he was a gentleman, despite all evidence pointing to him being a small fish in an even smaller pond. "You would be Carlos?" Richard asked. The man gave a single nod. "I hope you're doing better. I heard you'd gotten yourself quite injured by those thugs." Not badly enough to take me out of the picture." Richard held his hands wide. "Shall I twirl to prove it?" The man snorted a laugh. "That won't be necessary. You want a seat?" Richard nodded, and a simple chair was brought for him. When he sat, the chair tottered, but would hold so long as he didn't fidget. It would make it even more difficult to get up quickly if he needed to fight, but now that he'd taken it, he couldn't refuse the seat. Instead, he took a few coins from his pocket and put them under the offending chair leg, making it sit relatively flat. Then he sat back with a smile. "Thank you for that. It's still easier on me while I'm healing." "Wouldn't want to inconvenience you." Richard nodded and threw a few of his other coins onto the table. These men survived by knowing everything that happened in Hidan's underground. No matter how small the town, someone would have their fingers on the pulse, and make sure that the wrong people were never robbed or inconvenienced. If anyone would know about these assassins, it wouldn't be the sheriffs. It would be this man. "Thanks. Now, I came by for a simple card game and some good company. Will you deal me in?" "Of course." The man picked up his deck of cards and tossed all the money on the table off to the side. "Tell me, who started the trouble?" Richard snorted as Carlos shuffled the deck and tossed the first one his way. "Those idiots who attacked me. Wish I knew more about them." "I'd be wanting revenge if it were me," Carlos agreed. "Well, it was my best coat their damned bull ruined," Richard said negligently, picking up his hand. Carlos laughed. "There were 4. Said they came from Michael's den, but they didn't come by ship or by Raven's Wing. Our man who watches the walls was waiting for a shipment, and he saw them come over the northern side. The tall one had arranged the room under the name John, but one of my men heard the stout one call him Andreas." Richard looked at his own hand. "Not bad. A pair of 4s with a high queen, a red 7, and a black 2. He loved playing a good card game. Perhaps if the information didn't cost too much, Carlos and his friends wouldn't mind playing an actual game. "What'd they come in for?" Richard asked. He slid the 7 and 2 across the table. Carlos dealt him another 2 cards. A 6 and a 2. He threw more coins into the pot. "Raise." Carlos dropped 1 and dealt a new one to himself. He threw a few coins in. "Raise." Richard looked at the pile of coins. Apparently he hadn't greased the table enough for this info. He glanced at his cards and threw in a few coins to meet the bet. Call. Carlos smiled. They said they were looking for a thief. Needed him alive, though clearly they had a disagreement about that part. They wouldn't say what their thief stole, what his name was, or where he'd stolen it from. They found you right quick, though, even for a town this size. As if finding a stranger in Hidan would be difficult. None of them had ever been in a city the size of Giza, where you were lucky to know your own neighbors by name, let alone during the trading season when their population nearly doubled every year. When was that? Day before the Pretty's majority party, Carlos said. Richard put down the 6 and 2. Did they do anything else? Carlos dealt him another 2 cards. Richard had to stop himself from smiling. A red queen and an ace smiled back at him. He threw in another handful of coins. Carlos considered his hand carefully. Then he laid down a single card and claimed a new one. They hired one of our men to deliver a message. He paused again and threw down double the coins that were on the table. So this was personal for him. Richard knew better than to ask if the boy he'd chosen had been family. Damn shame. What was the message, and where did they send it? Carlos's fist smacked the table, making the coins jingle and jump. A simple task, taking a message to a certain grove outside Hidan. We thought there was another agent, and this is simple a job. Anthony hasn't returned home. He would not have turned tail. Richard threw in a few extra coins. Their boy was probably dead then. They'd know it already. The message? Found nothing of our man or the message. Call. Carlos's eyes looked dull at the words. Lay him out, Richard said. Carlos composed himself and laid out a pair of 7s and a pair of 5s. I hope that somebody kills them for what they did to my boy. A wave of pity ran through Richard, and he gave one decisive nod. If he did find the one that killed the man's boy, he'd do what he could. Fold. Who were they? Carlos asked. Richard felt a shiver go through him. It was unprofessional, but he could understand the man's need to know. Richard decided not to stay. They wouldn't survive, even if they believed him. She was coming. He had to leave town soon. Wish I knew. I know who hired them, though. You won't find the boy again. Carlos shook his head, looking dejected. Bad luck, that. I think we're done cards for the day. Have a safe walk back to the koi. Richard headed out, glad of the cold air. He'd go find Kazunaha tomorrow morning. He had until then to decide what he needed to do. Oh! Oh, and that's it for tonight! Let me just put the book down. Perfect! Oh! And that's it. Oh, I enjoyed this chapter, though not for the reasons that I normally would. It isn't that this chapter is particularly well written or anything. I mean, it's as well written as the rest of the book, but it's nothing special that way. No, it's more that this chapter shows Richard actually interacting with the criminal element in Hidan. I mean, which is something that Richard doesn't get to do often, regardless of what city he's in. And as chaotic as I am, I'm also quite a bit of a goody two-shoes. At least a little bit of a goody two-shoes, which means that I really have to research and work out how, like, the criminal underworld would work. I find it fascinating and terrifying all at once. I love it, and I love when I can get it right. which means that it's something that gets reworked over and over and over until I get it right. In final news, I won't be on Twitch tonight, but I will be online tomorrow evening instead. You will definitely want to be there because I have a new outfit to share with all of you. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Oh, but I really want to see if anyone figures out what the new outfit is going to be. So please, I'm putting out this picture. I'd love to see what you guys come up with. Oh, draw me a picture or just of the clothing, and I'll not only share them on Twitter, or I'll show them as I receive them too on Twitch. Oh, I will share this picture here on Twitter. Let me know what you think. Oh, so excited. I'm so pleased. Can't wait to show it to you. Finally, one last thing. I'm going to be expanding my Twitch days. You see, last week I was so close to achieving my goal on Wednesday that I decided I would come in Thursday as well, just to get the fishing quests finished and learn how to fish. But I had such a great time. Oh, I've decided I'm going to try and do 2 streams a week for the next few weeks and see if I can handle it. So this week will be, I'll be on Thursday at 9 p.m. PST instead of Wednesday, and Saturday at 9 p.m. PST, okay? Both of my games this week will be Genshin Impact, but next week I will use one of those days to continue my foray into Plants vs. Zombies. Oh, yes. A nice casual day where I can chat with all of you and just have a very nice little chatting casual game, okay? Yes. I will really be looking forward to it. Okay, I'll see you then.